In 2025, the RV market is shifting faster than many expected, and 9 major brands are feeling the impact more than anyone wants to admit. Dealers are quietly reporting slower turnover, warranty centers are seeing heavier workloads, and parts delays are becoming the new normal. What once looked like dependable names are now showing cracks, caused by overproduction, rising material costs, and tightening consumer budgets. Inventory is piling up on lots, resale values are slipping, and shoppers are noticing issues that never used to be there. Whether you're planning a purchase or protecting the investment you already have, these 9 brands falling apart in 2025 are changes you can't afford to overlook. Keystone. Something feels off the moment you walk past a row of Keystone units today, and it is not the wind moving the banners. What you are seeing is the result of a production surge that collided headfirst with a demand slowdown. A collision that turned a once dependable giant into a stressed manufacturer fighting its own inventory. During the boom years, Keystone pushed output to levels that made sense only if every family in America planned to tow a new rig by 2023. That wave never arrived. Instead, thousands of units piled onto dealer lots, and the financial pressure began building like weight on a cracked beam. Dealers report holding costs, climbing into numbers they will not say aloud unless you ask directly. Floor plan interest on a single unsold unit can run $9 to $11 per day, and when a lot carries dozens of them, the math becomes a slow bleed that no discount weekend can fix. A few owners quietly shared internal sheets showing units sitting 120 days or more without a single qualified buyer stepping forward. Every extra day pushes desperation a little deeper, and when desperation hits a dealership, it hits the owner's resale value next. Technicians are feeling the strain as well. Repair queues grow longer because parts warehouses are running lean, a sign that the company is holding cash wherever it can. Several service managers mentioned delayed shipments, stretching beyond the usual window, delays that always point toward tightened budgets. None of this means Keystone is disappearing tomorrow, but it does mean the company is juggling more weight than it wants you to notice. Too many rigs built too quickly in years when optimism outran reality, followed by a market correction that punished anything oversupplied. And Keystone, with its vast production footprint, took the hit harder than most. When a brand carries that much volume, every slowdown becomes a financial echo chamber. The numbers bounce around until something gives. For the tension is rising, and the direction of the next season will decide whether this pressure eases or becomes the new normal. Airstream. It has reached a point in 2025 where its legendary shine is no longer enough to steady the ground beneath it. For decades, the aluminum body was more than a design choice. It was a promise that the product held its worth. Yet the market has shifted, and the numbers are revealing pressure that styling cannot hide. Demand softened as financing tightened, and the sticker increases rolled out during the boom years are now colliding with hesitant shoppers who refuse to overstretch. Airstream once thrived on loyalty, but loyalty changes when wallets tighten and lenders grow selective. Production costs climbed sharply in recent seasons. Aluminum prices rose, interior materials surged, and labor expenses pushed upward, forcing the company to adjust its pricing structure. A unit comfortably in the mid-$30,000 range only a handful of years ago now sits in the mid-$40,000 range. And that gap matters in a market defined by restraint. Floor plan sheets from several regional dealerships show inventory sitting well past expected turnover windows, sometimes lingering beyond 120 days. Each extra day carries cost, and every cost eventually circles back into deeper markdowns. Service technicians describe an uptick in concerns as well. Ventilation inconsistencies, electrical routing issues, and seal fatigue are showing up more frequently than before. These are not disasters, but they hint at the residue of a production rush that stretched the system thinner than intended. Meanwhile, parts shipments that once arrived on predictable schedules now come with elongated timelines, reflecting a recalibration intended to conserve resources wherever possible. Auction sheets from late last year tell another part of the story. Reductions of 20 to 30% from original invoice appear again and again, marking a departure from the historically strong resale performance that once defined the brand. Airstream is still recognizable, still admired, but admiration alone is not enough when the market beneath it shifts. As the adjustment continues, the path forward will depend on how quickly the company steadies its footing while others struggle for the same ground. The next chapter shows just how unforgiving that ground has become. If this breakdown is making things clearer, take a second to like the video and subscribe so you do not miss the next updates. Your perspective and experiences help shape what we cover next, so make sure your voice is part of the conversation. Gulfstream. There is a particular kind of silence surrounding Gulfstream in 2025, the kind that follows a long stretch of pressure building behind the scenes. The brand once held its place as a dependable entry point, modest in features but steady in purpose. Then inflation arrived like a slow-moving storm, lifting the cost of every material that held these units together. Plywood, insulation, adhesives, and framing metals all surged upward in price. And every surge forced another decision. None of those decisions were easy. When a company anchored at the lower end of the market faces rising bills, the strain has only two places to go. Either the price jumps or the build thins. Gulfstream ended up caught between both realities. Technicians began noticing the hints first. Soft spots forming earlier than expected. Door frames sitting just a fraction off center. Sealant lines that looked rushed rather than measured. These signs did not appear everywhere, but they appeared enough times to form a pattern. A pattern confirmed by several service managers who mentioned an increase in warranty requests they once saw only occasionally. Parts departments, already stretched by supplier delays, reported longer waits as production schedules shifted to conserve cash. When suppliers demand more for the same material, a bottom-tier manufacturer has little room to maneuver. Dealers are feeling the weight as well. Floor plan statements from late last season show units lingering far beyond the traditional turnover mark, sometimes reaching 130 days or more. That kind of hold time bleeds into margins. And when margins shrink, price drops follow. Auction sheets tell the same story with blunt numbers. Reductions of 25 to 30% off original invoice appear with consistency, reflecting a cooling demand that no promotional weekend can mask. Gulfstream was built on accessibility, yet accessibility becomes fragile when inflation lifts the starting point beyond what many expect to pay. The brand now stands at a crossroads, navigating a market that offers no cushion. And as this chapter closes, the next brand reveals what happens when a manufacturer grows faster than its foundation can support. Thor 4 wins. It entered 2025, carrying a weight it built over more than a decade. A weight made from acquisitions, expansions, and an assumption that demand would never slow. For years, the company grew by absorbing brand after brand, stacking new divisions on top of older ones, until the entire structure resembled an empire held together by optimism and long-term credit. That strategy looked powerful during the surge years, but it now exposes the strain that comes when production outpaces purchasing power. The slowdown did not strike all at once. It crept in through softening orders, longer inventory cycles, and a growing hesitation from lenders who once approved applications without pause. Dealers began noticing the shift early. Units that normally moved within 80 days started sitting past 110. Floor plan statements reflected the pressure instantly, because every lingering unit brought another day of interest, another reminder that the system depended on constant turnover. Some internal sheets referenced output reductions approaching 30%, a number that signals caution from a manufacturer accustomed to expansion rather than contraction. These reductions were not presented as cuts, but the effect was unmistakable. Fewer shipments, fewer transport runs, and more conversation about adjusting expectations for the upcoming season. Service departments added another layer to the unfolding story. Requests for replacement components took longer to fill, and parts that once arrived within a predictable window began showing delays that stretched into weeks. Technicians pointed to these delays as signs of tightened resource management, the kind of tightening that occurs when a company must balance cash flow against a backlog created during more aggressive years. Warranty centers echoed similar patterns, noting an increase in inquiries paired with slower fulfillment from distribution hubs that previously operated with reliable precision. Auction data from the end of last year painted a blunt picture. Units that once retained strong percentages were now dipping 20 to 30% below expected resale ranges. That shift matters because it reflects hesitation from used market buyers who typically stabilize demand. When both new and used segments soften, the pressure multiplies. Thor now stands in a position where every move carries consequence, and as its balance adjusts to reality, the next chapter reveals an even sharper turn in momentum. Winnebago. There is a shift happening inside Winnebago in 2025. A shift that feels less like a simple slowdown and more like a brand caught between two eras. For decades, Winnebago held the middle ground, offering dependable touring rigs without leaning into excess. Yet the market around it changed, moving toward sharper pricing battles and faster feature cycles that forced manufacturers to adapt or slide. Winnebago adapted in some ways, but the middle ground tightened faster than expected. Dealers began noticing inventory holding longer than usual, stretching past 110 days on several lots. Each extra day added another thin layer of financial weight, a weight that eventually pushes list prices downward. Internal sheets shared quietly last season showed discount ranges moving into 20,000 and 30,000 cuts on units that once commanded stronger numbers. Those reductions reflect hesitation, not neglect, because hesitation drains confidence from both new buyers and used watchers. Technicians contributed their own observations. They reported longer waits for parts, stretched service queues, and occasional inconsistencies in build alignment. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to signal a production rhythm adjusting under pressure. When production slows, inventory piles, and when inventory piles in a tightening market, resale begins to erode. That erosion is already visible in auction sheets, showing reductions of 20 and 25% from original invoice, numbers that would have been unusual only a few years ago. The brand now finds itself in a narrowing lane, caught between rising production costs and shoppers seeking stronger value. Winnebago remains recognizable, but recognition alone cannot steady a market under pressure. As the landscape shifts again, the next chapter exposes an even deeper strain emerging across the industry. The coming months will determine whether Winnebago can reclaim stability or continue sliding toward a quieter presence in showrooms. Market data suggests that demand fluctuations will intensify as financing windows tighten, leading dealers to monitor aging units with sharper caution. If adjustments arrive swiftly, the brand may regain its footing. If not, the pattern seen will become the baseline instead of the exception, shaping expectations and tightening leverage across landscape. Coachmen. There is a tension surrounding Coachmen in 2025 that is impossible to miss once you listen to the people who work with these units every single day. It begins quietly, in the back offices of dealerships, where allocation sheets land with a thud instead of anticipation. Managers look at the numbers, look at their lots, and make a choice they rarely made a few years ago. They decline the shipment, not because they dislike the brand, but because the financial weight of holding it has started to exceed the benefit of selling it. That is the part most shoppers never see. The moment when a dealership decides a product line is no longer worth the risk. Service departments were the first to sense the shift. Technicians noticed a rise in repair tickets tied to electrical inconsistencies, soft wall sections, and premature roof wear that appeared earlier than expected. These issues were not universal, but they surfaced often enough to form a pattern. Internal communications circulating last spring referenced delays in reimbursement processing, delays that stretched into multi-week windows. When a dealership performs warranty work and waits that long for repayment, it strains trust. And strained trust always affects future ordering decisions. Every repair that lingers, every part that arrives late, adds another layer to the hesitation. On the sales side, floor plan costs kept stacking. Units that once moved within 75 to 90 days began sitting beyond 120. Each day added interest. Each week added pressure. Eventually, managers began prioritizing brands with faster turnover and more predictable warranty timing. Coachmen was not removed from the showroom. it was quietly eased toward the back of the rotation. Auction sheets reflected the same momentum. Reductions of 22 to 28% off original invoice began showing up more frequently, signaling a softening market response that no promotional event could reverse. Coachmen is not collapsing, but it is being recalibrated by the very people who rely on consistent product performance to keep their doors open. And as that recalibration continues, the next chapter exposes a brand facing an even deeper test in an unforgiving landscape. If you want the next chapters the moment they release, make sure you subscribe. The market is shifting quickly, and timing matters. Staying connected here ensures you get the information you need before the next round of changes hits Jayco. Something shifted inside Jayco in 2025. And it began with a simple truth that dealerships whispered long before customers noticed it. The price of owning this long-trusted brand rose faster than the wallets of the people who used to anchor its success. For years, Jayco built a reputation on family practicality, steady construction, and pricing that felt reachable. But when material costs surged and interest rates climbed, the adjustments landed directly on the sticker. What was once positioned as an attainable option suddenly sat in a territory that pushed loyal shoppers toward hesitation instead of commitment. Dealers felt the impact first. Units that once turned within 80 or 90 days started stretching past 130. Every extra day pulled more interest from floor plan accounts. And when the numbers added up, managers began nudging Jayco lower in their internal priority lists. A few shared confidential turnover sheets from late last season showing markdowns reaching 20 and 25% on units barely a year old. Those reductions were not promotional strategies. They were lifelines designed to clear space that should have cleared itself. Service departments contributed their own perspective. Technicians noticed that warranty queues grew longer as parts distribution centers worked through tightened inventories. Delays that once measured in days occasionally stretched toward multi-week windows, creating frustration for shops that relied on swift turnaround to maintain trust. None of this suggested failure, but it did reveal a system operating under tension rather than confidence. When a brand famous for reliability carries tension, buyers pause. Auction reports from the final quarter of last year made the trend unmistakable. Units sold at percentages far below what Jayco historically retained, often dipping into ranges that signaled a correction rather than a routine seasonal adjustment. That correction hit hardest for owners who purchased during the previous surge because their depreciation arc accelerated the moment those auction numbers became reference points for trade-ins. Jayco now stands at a crossroads shaped by forces it did not entirely create, but must now navigate carefully. The next half of the year will determine whether the brand stabilizes or slides further from the position it once held with ease. And as one story tightens, the next chapter reveals a brand facing a different kind of pressure altogether. Fleetwood. This one enters 2025 carrying a tension that even longtime enthusiasts can feel the moment they walk onto a showroom floor. The shine is still there. The presence is still there. The name still carries weight. But the buyers who once anchored this segment are stepping back faster than anyone expected. And the reasons are written in the numbers that dealers now speak about only behind closed office doors. Diesel chassis costs climbed, composite materials surged. Labor expenses increased. Each rise pushed Fleetwood's pricing structure to levels that outpaced the comfort zone of the very shoppers who once treated this brand as the natural upgrade from mid-tier travel rigs. Dealers noticed the shift first. Units that previously moved within 75 or 90 days began sitting past 140. That extra time brought heavier floor plan interest, heavier carrying costs, and heavier pressure to reduce prices in ways that would have been unthinkable a few seasons ago. Internal sheets shared quietly last quarter documented discounts stretching from $30,000 to $40,000 on units still well within their technical prime. These were not advertising strategies. They were survival strategies designed to stop aging inventory from tying up capital that dealerships could not afford to lock down. Technicians added their own perspective to the unfolding story. Supply chains that once delivered parts with rhythmic consistency started showing subtle delays. turning days into weeks and occasionally pushing repairs into uncomfortable holding patterns. Customers who used to expect premium-level responsiveness found themselves waiting longer, often without clear timelines. And those waits chipped away at confidence. In a segment defined by expectations rather than necessity, confidence matters more than any paint finish or lighting package. Auction data from late last year confirmed the broader trend. Fleetwood units that used to hold value with remarkable steadiness slipped into depreciation ranges of 25% and 30%, signaling buyer hesitation across both new and used markets. When both markets cool at the same time, momentum does not simply slow, it reverses. Fleetwood now stands at a pivotal moment, facing a landscape where loyalty alone will not reset the trajectory. As the dust settles on this chapter, the next brand reveals how scale, not price, can become the heaviest burden of all. Forest River. The brand grew into a titan by producing more units, more floor plans, and more sublines than anyone else in the industry. That scale looked unstoppable when demand was high, credit was cheap, and dealerships begged for inventory. But the rhythm shifted, and the size that once felt like strength has turned into an anchor, pulling against every part of the operation. The signs began quietly. Transport schedules slowed. Allocation lists shrank. Production crews reported shorter shifts and longer pauses between runs. None of these changes made headlines, yet all of them revealed a system tightening its belt. Dealers started feeling the pressure almost instantly. Lots that normally rotated inventory within 90 or 100 days began stretching past 140. Every extra day added floor plan interest, storage pressure, and another reminder that high-volume strategies turn punishing when buyers hesitate. Internal sheets circulating late last season showed thousands of Forest River units sitting across regional yards, creating a backlog heavy enough to force several divisions to reduce output. When a manufacturer built on speed begins to slow, the ripple touches everything. Service departments reported growing delays as suppliers paused shipments until outstanding invoices were cleared, stretching routine repairs and signaling financial strain moving through the system. Warranty centers saw rising inquiries tied to slower approvals, exposing administrative pressure inside an operation once known for steady rhythm. Auction data from late last year showed units dropping 25% to 30%, reshaping expectations across markets. Forest River now faces a moment where its enormous scale demands efficiency it can no longer reach, proving that larger empires feel the hardest adjustments to endure. Let me know in the comments which brand surprised you most, or what you've seen firsthand. If you found this helpful, make sure to like the video and subscribe. More R-vee insights are coming, and you won't want to miss what's next. Thanks for tuning in.